Hello everyone, Janie here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a project that I've been working on, and even though there is not a tutorial, I am going to be walking you through what I did and how I did it, and I'll also have links below in the description box to the products that I've used. So let me show you what this project is. As many of you know, I lost my husband in February, and I wanted to make something special for our granddaughters to keep his memory alive because they loved him so much, as did everyone that knew him. So I made them each a light-up heart frame with a picture of their grandpa in it, and they are each getting one in their favorite color. These were really easy to make using ArtResin Non-Toxic resin and the heart frame silicone mold and a string of lights. Now, let me tell you about the process. So to start off with, you have your resin, and it comes with the resin and a hardener. It is non-toxic. It doesn't have VOCs. It's no BPA. I have actually researched, and they have a lot of information on this on their website. So it is non-toxic, which means you don't need to wear a respirator or any special equipment. Just wear some, rubber gloves so that you don't get it on your hands just because it's hard to get off. And there's no fumes, but if you're more comfortable, you can wear a face mask if you want. So the hardener and the resin mix half and half, and it's not by weight. Just there's little, silicone measuring cups you can use, and stir it with a popsicle stick or whatever, but just 50% of each. And then you can color it with things like resin tint. This is also from ArtResin, and it is non-toxic. Or you can use paints. Like I like to use these folk art paints. I have a bunch of them and I love them. And so I think for one of them I used some of this, another one I used some of these. And it doesn't take very much, literally just a couple of drops in the resin. So I would just do a tiny bit at a time when you're doing this. And then you can add things like, glitter, just, whatever you want to add to it. Okay, now let me set this aside. You're going to need a photo, obviously, and I made mine square. You can do, rectangle or heart shape, whatever you want. And then you're going to need to laminate it because, the wetness of the resin can seep through the photo paper and distort the color. And if you don't have a laminator, you can get this at the Dollar Tree. You can get the clear shelf paper, contact paper, and just seal this between two pieces of contact paper just to prevent the moisture from getting in. And then you can trim it around the edge, but not too close. And so that's what you need to do to prepare your photo. And now I'm going to set that aside because now we're to the heart. And I'm going to bring in one of these. I'm not going to undo it and put it in because, like I said, this isn't a tutorial. But I got these lights. Turn it on there so you can see. Woohoo! Okay, I've got these lights, and instead of the 6-foot ones that they normally have, or 7-foot, these are only 3 feet. But if you want more lights in there, you can obviously use 6-foot ones or whatever. And what I do is I undo these, which I'm not going to do, and I just start. Maybe I will undo it a little bit. Or not, because that's stuck in there pretty good. Okay, so you can see that there's this part that has a plastic coating over it that leads to this. I like to leave that sitting on the outside so that it's easy to, hide this behind it and then turn it on and off. So with that on the outside and with this all unwound, I then start taking it around and shaping it to the shape of the heart. And it's going to want to wiggle and bounce and do everything else. Just go around and push it and form it into the shape of the heart. And, if you have to bend them a little bit, that's fine. But get it in the shape of the heart. And then once you do that, you're going to take some of that resin without paint. So you're going to take the clear resin and you're going to pour it in the bottom. Enough to have a thin layer, not too thin, but a thin layer that this wire is starting to sit in. Now this wire is going to come all the way up to the back, so you'll be covering it up with other layers. But after you do that, you're going to take your photo and you're going to put it face down in there, and you're going to press it down with like the popsicle stick or something to make sure that all the bubbles are out. And actually, I forgot to tell you one thing, and I'm not going to re-record, so I'm going to pull this out and tell you that first of all, I just stuck the picture to it. Okay, so you're going to need to use like your heat gun, preferably not a torch, because a torch can, you know, we don't want it to melt the fairy lights. So I would use a heat gun and just kind of go over it to make sure you get out all of the little bubbles. And then when you put this in, you're going to push it down to make sure that there's no bubbles underneath it. And let me show you what that might look like. Okay, there's another picture frame that comes with this set, and this is it. It's two separate pieces, and it fits together. This was my first attempt. Looks like he is underwater with bubbles, and you just don't want that to happen. So definitely push it down and make sure that, you know, if there's any bubbles coming out the side, because with it face down, you are not going to know until this, at least this first layer is, you know, more solidified. You can put your pictures in facing up and be able to, you know, keep track of it better. But the reason I don't is because I didn't want this sticking out the front of the frame. I wanted it sticking out the back, which means the picture had to go face down. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So now remember, we now have the wire in there going around. We now have the picture in there upside down. And now once the picture's in there and you're sure the bubbles are out, pour a little bit more clear over it so that you're covering the back of the picture. And again, use your heat gun to make sure that you get all the bubbles out. And you're going to let that sit for a few hours. I don't have an exact thing. I get busy. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's less. But you definitely want to let it set for a few hours because you don't want your next layer to kind of soak in there, because you're going to start putting colored layers in and you don't want them to affect the picture. So after this is set for, I would say, at least 3 hours, then you can put your next layer on, and that could be a colored layer or a clear layer with glitter or whatever you want to do. But then you put your next layer on, and again, you want to let that sit for a few hours. Now, why do you want to let it sit for a few hours? Because this resin is self-leveling and it will work its way into whatever. If you, let's say you put the clear layer on and then you immediately put on the colored layer, boom, it's all going to sink in together. If you do the same thing with the glitter layer, it's all going to sink in together. So that's why I do a layer at a time. And so I think I usually do a clear layer, a glitter layer, a paint layer, and a clear layer, kind of in that order. And so this process actually takes about a day and a half. And then, of course, it has to set for, I would say, at least 36 hours. And by the way, while you're doing that, this part here is the frame. Let me grab that. Silly me, not the frame, but the frame holder. So let me move this over. This right here is what this is right here at the bottom, okay? And this is what is going to hold your frame. And this is what I mean about it coming out the back. So this is that plastic area that's covered, and actually I left a lot of it hanging out on this one, and I don't know why. I usually don't leave that much hanging out. But anyways, this is what it looks like, and it's just, you can see the glitter layer right up there, but that's actually the second layer. And then the paint layer or colored layers behind that, and then another clear layer. And it's the same thing, you know, with this. You can put it in layers, or you can do it all at once. Let me see if you can see that with layers. This is clear. You could see some glitter floating in there, and then the color on the very bottom. I have another one done differently. And then it just goes together like this, which you can't see when it's standing up, so it looks like this. And then, of course, you turn on the light. Come here, light. There we go. And it lights up. And it's beautiful. Okay, so basically, let me lay that down. Basically, that is how you make this. So I just wanted to let you know that it is done in layers and that you need to let it set a few hours between layers. You don't have to let it sit for days till it's totally solid. but you just have to let it solidify enough that the next layer will float on top of the first layer, the second layer, and so on. And that is how easy this was to do. Boom, that was it. And like I said, it does come with not only this frame, but this one right here. Let me see, where's it at? So this is really a thin layer, whereas this one is thick. This one is thin. And so with this one, you can actually do it with a picture face up. I did this one with it face down. You can do it with it face up because you're only going to be putting one layer on here. You're not going to be putting multiple layers. There's just not enough room. And then down here is where the photo stand is, the frame stand. So there you go. I think I've pretty much covered everything, and I just wanted to share that with you. You know, as you all know, this has been a very rough time for me. And no, I am not crying during this. I'm holding myself together. I can cry afterwards. I can cry before. But I'm working really hard at not crying during videos. But this is just a very special project that has been a long time in the making, just because it was also emotionally difficult for me to make these. But I'm going to save them now and give them to my granddaughters for Christmas now that it's this late in the year. But I think they'd make great gifts. If you guys are at all interested, I'm going to have everything linked below in the description box. And I'm hoping that me telling you the process will help you know what to do if you want to make something similar to this. For those of you that watched all the way through, thank you so very much. This was really a difficult thing to share, but I was so happy with how this project turned out, and I wanted to share it with you in case you're interested in making some special gifts for Christmas or just because. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.